I think we should go ahead and get started. We're at 7 after here, so I've got the recording going, and I'll share this a little later on, as soon as time permits. And let me just get John's name in here. Okay, so quick review of action items. I haven't set up this follow-up meeting with the developers yet, but I do have a report on that, or a related report, which I'll share during my individual update. Everton said this meeting is going to be first week in January, so that should be coming up in the next week or two. So I'll report back on that. I do have a follow-up to send another email to chapter leaders, but we were going to try to use this filament donation program as an incentive for that, and I don't really know where that stands. I might have to reach out to Dan Ulrich and see where that stands. If that's not going to happen in the very near future, then maybe we should just go ahead and try sending a follow-up email and see what we can do. Bob, draft a template for organizations wanting to support e-NABLE, for example, a group of employees making devices.
I have my own first draft done.
Okay.
I'm in the process of refining it. It will be out well in advance of next week's call.
Excellent. Thank you. And you are also going to write up a post in the Hub about fundraising and asking people to share their contacts and leads. I saw you did that.
It's done.
Thank you. And the last one was for me to update the e-NABLE Hub wiki for how to get started as a volunteer, calling greater attention to the code of conduct and making sure Lumio is included. I started to make updates in there. I do still need to finish that. The code of conduct was already in there. I don't recall if I checked for Lumio, but I will. So I'm still in the process of making a number of different updates throughout that wiki. So that's in progress. So on we go. I don't have any guest presentations lined up, so just the usual call out there. If anyone has interesting projects they want to share, you're welcome to join us anytime, and we've got an open schedule for guest presentations. Let's see, moving on. Got no introductions today. Anyone like to add anything to the agenda for us here today?
No.
Okay.
I will mention the video room.
Yeah, I've got that on the agenda already, John. So I've got that under a section of infrastructure updates. So we will talk about that as well as other updates that have been made recently. So key metrics are listed here. We've got 16 new registrations in the Hub this week, bringing us to 685 members. So continuing to see some nice steady growth there. e-NABLE Web Central, pretty much the same as usual. We still have 16 cases available in there. Most of those are still Dean Rock's cases for the Dominican Republic, looking for the four-finger gripper device that he created. It is a little bit more of a challenging device, and I don't think we have a lot of people that have experience with that, so that might be why we still have those cases mostly open, but we'll hope for the best there. Help desk, pretty much status quo. We had another 18 e-NABLE tickets, 19 badge requests, and just one e-NABLE Web Central support ticket this week. So that's pretty much the same as usual.
Jeremy, do we want to mention at this point about the obsoleting of 3 badges?
We certainly can, although I haven't gotten to it yet. We have decided that we're going to retire a few badges that are just redundant, that are redundant with some of the device-specific badges. So we're going to be retiring those, and I'm just going to remove them from the badging pages, and anyone who's already received those badges will still have them. We're just going to, take it off the pages so that we don't issue them any further just because we already have other badges that are redundant with those.
Yeah, we've stopped issuing them already, actually.
Okay, great.
With an apology note and an explanation.
Okay, well, I'll try to get to that as soon as I'll try to get to that as soon as possible then, so you don't have to keep doing that.
There's not that many of them.
Okay. All right, so on we go to our individual updates. We'll try to keep this to about 5 minutes apiece so we can get into some of our other agenda items today. So, Ben, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'll be quick today. Coming up later this afternoon, I've got a meeting with Nate Monroe to do an interview with him. It'll be structured similar to the one that it was safe with 5 questions. I think it'll be really great to share with the community his background and really his role at the crossroads between the adaptive community and make community. I also met with Kyle Reeser over the weekend and talked to him about creating a template to share his stories. He's got some incredible work right now on his wiki, but it's I think going to be a little bit of a process to get people over to his space to see all the work that he's done. But it's really an incredible log of his trip, which was supported by the Lumio process. It was like an internship we did for 6 weeks in East Africa. I sent an email to Jeremy. Sounds like the Hanathon stuff is all in progress, which is really exciting. That article, I think, will be really amazing to share for the newsletter. So that's all in process, which is great. MASB integrated metrics into the hub. So I don't know if you got a chance to check that out, Jeremy, but it's awesome to see it really integrated right into the design of the hub. It works really well. It's a little bit cleaner than it was in the past, so that I think opens up some opportunities for the future development. And I think the next stop from there will be the profile group. So John and I talked this week about the idea of targeting the registrations for the new users to see if we can set up the registration process to include these profile groups in place of the permissions groups. And we've had some emails back and forth, but I think coming up with a taxonomy for what these groups are. So I'll send that proposal out later today of what the taxonomy could look like and basically what the groups could be for the registration process.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Bob, over to you.
Okay, the usual stuff with the Zoho desk and the chapters. No new chapters this week. It's been, a holiday week, so pretty quiet. I'm about to cycle through on another round of EWC facilitation. About 6 active cases being facilitated right now. Actually, most of them offline because there's a lot of back and forth advice. But they eventually will be reflected on EWC. Some of you know this. I received, just out of the blue, a Christmas card and a photo and a nice note from one of my earlier cases, a little boy in Tokyo. And the only reason I mention it here is that they mention that the little boy still loves his arm. It's an unlimited arm. He uses it, quote unquote, for posing and play. He has 2 other devices, one for jumping rope, I guess, and the other for eating. And I think some of you know that I've requested more information on that, photos if possible, because I'm getting the feeling, at least in this case of mine, and it may be more general, our devices are good for certain things, but they're not good for others. And if there's some way we can make enhancements to the standard models or existing devices to approach those challenges better, that might be an opportunity for us.
Bob, I'm actually really intrigued by the hook-based design that Nate showed us that he's working on. I mean, it might not be the most aesthetically pleasing, but it looks to have a lot of really nice functionality with the different holding patterns and ability to hold utensils and things like that.
Good point.
So
Good point,
we might have some options coming.
Good. And that's a lead-in to the Lumio proposal and our NIOP rollout. I've gotten a lot of feedback on the Lumio proposal, none of which is really substantive in terms of needed changes, other than, Bob, you're going to need more money than that. and I agree. But that really is scalable. The money is mostly for helping subsidize perhaps our international highly involved people.
Yeah.
So it's really just a question of how much money will we have to help out and who can we get there.
Well, I'll just point out, Bob, that when we first started the e-NABLE Fund, the vision for that was always to support those initiatives that are going to be of the greatest benefit to the broadest, segments of the community. It was never intended to support, one person or one chapter. It was always supposed to be those things that have a wider benefit. And I can't think of a better example of that than the kind of work Nate is doing. So I really hope to see that.
Absolutely. No, I fully agree. The concept, Jeremy, and we can leave this, we can discuss this. The concept is to train trainers who will then go out and train other people.
And I mentioned in the comments I put on there, I'd be happy to go to that workshop and take videos so those videos can be shared and, help to disseminate those tutorials to others.
Super. So what I'm doing now is right after the first of the year, I'm pretty much going to maybe, polish up the proposal a little bit, but I'm going to put it up for vote now. It's not, there are no substantive changes based on the remarks. frankly, I'm a little underwhelmed by the response. I mean, not many people have looked at it. But I will go ahead and do that. And then we'll go ahead. I'll work with Sean and we'll plan the reconnaissance. Would you be interested on coming out for the reconnaissance, Jeremy?
Remind me what the reconnaissance refers to.
The belief is that we have, Sean, myself, her husband, who does the assembly. We go out and kind of learn everything from Nate and see what it is before we plan a more involved workshop with a lot of other people. The fear is that if we just have everybody show up without us knowing and planning, it could be a free-for-all.
That's a good idea. Let me know when you plan that, and I'll do my best if I'm able to. Traveling is sometimes a little hard for me with the business, but let me know, and I'll see if I can join you.
It's not going to be late January by the time we vote and everything. It could be early February, mid-February.
All right. Well, I do have another event in mid-February, but we'll see how the dates line up.
Okay. I'll let everybody know.
Okay.
So that is proceeding. And I'm going to be heavily working on fundraising in the first quarter.
Great.
We have a couple of opportunities out there that have settled down for the holidays. But my goal is to get 5 or 6 strong candidates in play by the end of January. And the goal is to raise $40,000 to $50,000 in the first quarter. There has been no response to anything I've seen on fundraising from the hub.
Okay.
Is what it is. Okay, that's it. Oh, one other thing. I put out the initiatives for 2020 as a draft. I got good feedback from you and John and some others.
Yep.
Yes, we want to, clearly, unless people sign up for them and are champions and we have goals and objectives, they're not going to get done. My concern is, are we going to get enough people to sign up and work?
Agreed. Yeah, we got to figure that system out. I think, what we've seen with systems like this, similar to the Lumio platform and other kinds of, programs like that we've put together, it's all about, repeated and ongoing kind of promotion and communication. The fact that we've put that volunteering needs space out there in the hub is not enough. Most people aren't, active in it. Most people aren't looking at it. But if we kind of, mention it periodically and remind people and point people that over time, it'll kind of get embedded into the process. So it'll take a while to get that worked into the process.
Nobody was jumping up and down yelling, me, I love cold calling.
Yeah, I hear you. Not the most exciting of our volunteering ventures, I suppose.
That's it, Jeremy.
Okay, thanks. Let's see, we don't have Ed or Everton, at least not yet, so I guess I'll go ahead with my updates. I just, as of this morning, confirmed details for participating in this year's Construct 3D conference and representing e-NABLE there. This is a fairly large conference for educators around 3D printing and digital fabrication, and it's been very widely attended by educators in past years. Up until this year, organizations like mine, like 3D Universe and even e-NABLE and other kinds of companies or organizations have not been invited to attend. It's been strictly an educational event. They did change things a little this year so that they have certain sponsorships and you can have tables and booths and give talks and things like that. And so we had some discussions with the Ultimaker team. They're the ones that organized this event. And they agreed to give us special pricing in order to attend, representing both 3D Universe and e-NABLE. So e-NABLE is going to be the main focus, really. We'll have, a table set up with, e-NABLE things and potentially talk to them about giving a session. Jen probably, and Jen and I will be attending. So we will be there. And it's in February 13th to 16th at Rice University. Yeah, so that's the one I have in mid-February. But it should be a good event. I think it'll be really good exposure for educators. They said there's actually quite a few sessions that are e-NABLE related. I guess several other educators are going to be talking about the e-NABLE work they're doing. And so I think e-NABLE is going to be very well represented at this event and should bring a lot of new kind of schools and classrooms into the e-NABLE fold. So I'll report more as I know, but I hope others are able to participate in that event. And then our segment aired on CNBC last weekend.
Great. It's wonderful.
Thank you. And thanks to John
Really
for
good.
flying out and helping us with that. I think he did a great job. And so that recording is now available. There's a link here in the notes, and I shared that in the hub, and it's on our Facebook page and website and such. So if anyone hasn't seen that, check it out. It's just a 6-minute segment, but I think they did a pretty good job on it. And we'll actually be getting all the kind of the raw footage from that as well, so that we might have the opportunity to kind of remix and do other videos and that sort of thing in the future. Hi, who just joined by phone? Did someone just join by phone?
Yes, I did.
Oh, is that you, John?
It's me, John.
Oh, okay.
I needed to switch because of battery issues. Anyway, I'm here by voice.
Okay, sorry. I just want to get your phone number off the screen. All right.
And you can disconnect the other guy if you like.
Ah,
He
okay.
looks just like you.
All right. Let me just get rid of the extra John here. Interesting. It doesn't want to go away. All right, we'll just leave it. Okay, well, that's my update for now. So actually, John, it's you up next.
Jeremy, quick question.
Oh,
Are you
yeah,
going to
Bob.
be discussing the EnableCon committee?
I have that on the agenda. I don't really have anything to report right now, but I am planning in early January to start sending out emails to coordinate some recurring meetings and try to finalize the team of who wants to participate in that. So you will be seeing some emails soon about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so John?
So my achievement this interval has been creating a video room with MASV, which is now active on the hub. It suffers from the social network problem, which is that its real value doesn't emerge until lots of people use it. And to my knowledge, so far, no one has used it except a few of us in testing. But it is there. You can find it on the menu, and if you go there, your video can be made live, as can that of anyone else who joined, and it's sort of a shared party line. I was going to suggest that if people are making prints for e-NABLE and they've got cameras set up in their labs, that would be sort of a fun background activity, and I'm going to try to add something somewhere that will allow people to get a glimpse at what's currently happening in the video room. Anyway, it's there. It's available for meetings. We might consider sometime in the future having SPC meetings in that space, just to get people thinking about making use of it.
John, just food for thought. This is just kind of a hunch, but I have a feeling that if we could come up with a way to have a real-time chat room, text chat, I think that might see more usage than a video room. Just something tells me people feel more comfortable kind of jumping in and out of a text chat and being able to kind of, talk amongst themselves more casually as opposed to getting on camera. So I wonder if there's not a way to get just a chat room set up where people can just come. That way, when you come in, you would actually see the kind of the, just like on a Discord channel,
Yes.
You'd see the historical chat,
I think that's a fine idea. It occurred to me similarly that the chat bot that you have in e-NABLE Web Central is arguably something that would be good as a presence on all of our sites.
Oh, it's already there. I'll give that update shortly. It's already been implemented.
That's great. Is it possible to make social chat a function of that same thing?
No, that is.
The point is, it would be.
No, that's specifically tied into our help desk. It's not a person-to-person chat tool.
Okay. Well, so the point is, it might be nice to think about some kind of a utility which is present with the same icon at e-NABLE Web Central and Enabling the Future and the Hub.
Well, I mean, now that we have MASV who can do some kind of real-time development and customization, I would think that if we found the right tool for real-time chat, he could probably figure out a way to embed that like right in the sidebar of the forum. So you've got your forum posts in the main part of the screen, and then maybe off on the right, you've got a real-time chat that's happening that you can just kind of jump in on any time.
Fair enough. I'll talk to him about that. Be aware that the video room includes real-time chat, and so the first thing I'll do is see whether MASV can surface that perspective, that view, if you will, so that it is by default real-time chat. But if you want to go deeper, you can just dig into it. We'll look into it.
Okay, sounds good.
Good.
Any other updates?
Not really. I've been sick, but I'm better. And
good.
That's all I got to say.
Okay. Saif, welcome. Any updates for us?
Hey, right now I've been working on the research that we were doing with like how all the communities are collaborating on 3D printed prosthetics. So we got feedback from the reviewers, and right now I've just been like working on that research. Which John, I shared it with John and Ben a little bit, and so right now that's basically what I'm advancing on. I believe Rodrigo has been working more closely with UNAM, the university, for getting like more the development of more devices out, and so that's mainly our updates. Yeah, right now I'm basically just working on rewriting some of the things to make it clear.
Very nice.
Yes, and happy New Year and happy holidays for everyone.
Thank
Absolutely.
You too.
Okay, so on we go to our regular agenda. This is nice. We actually have some time today to get into some of these things. So the first one up, Bob already touched on this, e-NABLE 2020 initiatives and volunteering needs. So Bob has drafted a document for us that lists out 2020 e-NABLE initiatives, and I put a link in here. We can just pop over to that real quick, and I'd say let's not spend too much time on this right now, but I'll just run through these so that we have it on record. He's put in here the updating and strengthening of the code of conduct, which we are working on. There's a thread for that on the hub. The fundraising effort that Bob is working on, and he mentioned that before. The expansion of e-NABLE promoted markets, and that ties into the discussion that we talked about with the NIAP work that Nate is doing, and possibly getting into devices for animals, other types of assistive devices, etc. There's an initiative for increased volunteer involvement, and this deals with getting more cases into e-NABLE Web Central, driving more members into the Lumio process and the hub and this SPC process here, etc. We've talked about e-NABLE GDPR compliance and making sure that we are doing everything we need to ensure privacy of data. There's a project here for sustainability that Dan Ulrich is working on. We don't have a lot of details on that just yet. There's one for recipient outreach, dealing with possibly Google Ads, reaching out to other types of compatible organizations, etc. There's a follow-up data initiative, much like what Saif just talked about and that others are working on. And then this NIAP dissemination initiative that's being discussed on the hub, and an ecosystem coherence initiative. Now that one I'm not familiar with that. Is that from?
Well, that's the Deloitte and other projects
okay. All right,
designed to provide a more unified look and feel to our various sites.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got some great initiatives documented now. Thank you very much, Bob, for putting that together. But going back to our notes here, within the same topic, I also put a link to our volunteering needs spreadsheet, and we have the volunteering needs space in the hub. And I suggested that we try to kind of tie these together. That I think these initiatives, or at least some of these initiatives, likely have some tasks or volunteer activities tied to them that we might be able to capture in that volunteering needs spreadsheet in order to start to try to find people that can step up and take responsibility for some of these initiatives, or at least portions of them. I don't know exactly what that process is or how we go about doing that. I just wanted to put that out there.
Suggestion, Jeremy.
Yeah.
My goal was just for the SPC purposes to get a list.
Yep.
And that's been commented upon. It's been edited by John. He expanded the NIAP initiative to its own item. I had it up under the previous one, but that's fine. It's significant enough. It should be its own.
Okay.
So once we're all comfortable with it, I agree. I mean, I can go ahead and populate that to the volunteering needs sheet. That's no problem. And I can sign up for the ones that I'm responsible for, like NIAP, like fundraising. My concern is that we need a lot of other people.
That's right. But at least we have a tool for it now, so if we can get those things populated in there, then we can take the next step, and this is where Ben can help us, of promoting that and getting the word out there and putting it into our newsletters and putting the call out there to get volunteers to start to sign up for those things.
Super. Well, why don't we have an action item that I'll populate the sheet in the next several days?
Sounds
That's
good.
great. So I think I think the sequence Jeremy just outlined is exactly right. I want to point out that the spreadsheet, the forum is currently, but also the social media groups, but the forum is currently the most far-reaching and response-gathering mechanism we seem to have, and that in particular the unmet need topics, the unmet needs topic has worked quite effectively on a couple of occasions. And so figuring out how to exploit that and how to make it clear that priorities with champions become higher priorities because they have champions, and that priorities without champions ain't going to go nowhere. And so finding some way of coupling championship to these priorities is something we need to think about. One possibility is that we just, for example, declare that we think that priorities with champions should have working budgets of X to come from the e-NABLE fund, or something that will make it clear that if you become a champion, you're also going to have some resources and some respect. I'm just throwing it out there to point out that we need something that will couple these together.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Otherwise, they'll just sit there and it'll be another spreadsheet and nothing gets populated.
And I don't know that we need to go as far as saying that, you're entitled to X amount, but I think it's a great idea to make it clear that people who are willing to take ownership of these are certainly welcome to propose, funding from the e-NABLE fund as needed for that particular effort. So I think it'll vary from one thing to another.
It will.
Maybe something that we can do as a first step is to create a badge that if somebody's a champion for one of these initiatives, they can have that badge. It could be something too where we talked about this in the past, but there's some kind of as we have all this filament, there's some kind of gift involved. It doesn't have to be something that's expected, but it could be something that for the people that stand up and apply for this badge, we say, here's a package of filament or something like that, without having anything specific expected. For these community initiatives, is this something that we want to open up to the hub forum? Do we want to send this out and see if we can get some general comments before we structure it and put it into the spreadsheet? And I'd recommend, instead of populating this specifically into the current spreadsheet that we have, if we can just number it and then look at the requests we currently have and then sort of file it in place and have maybe a column that says, this is part of, e-NABLE 2027 or something like that. And it would just be a link back to this document. So we can continue to edit it a little bit. It might be a little bit more flexible for us. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think we can do that. I think we just need to try to get everything in one place. So if the spreadsheet is our central sort of, repository of, tasks and projects, it can certainly link back to a document for more details. But I think the idea is to have one place that records all of these and that we can direct people to as a primary source of record.
Do we volunteer people that are sort of de facto champions today? For instance, the coherence one is Ed. The response from recipients is safe, right? I mean, when I populate the sheet, I can certainly populate known.
Well, maybe we should just send a message to those people and ask them, are you okay if we assign this one to you? Just make sure that they agree to it, but probably.
Oh, that's right. And I think including in that, are you okay, is an invitation to discuss how to structure their role. I found it helpful to have those discussions, and in the course of the discussion, a plan emerges. I've had this experience with SAFE, which is not too daunting, and yet is better articulated than simply saying, are you willing to do this?
Mm-hmm.
So the real question is, are you willing to have a discussion about how you might become the champion for this initiative?
Yeah, it's a good thought. All right, so I think we have a good plan for at least the next couple of steps on this. So let's leave it on the agenda, and we can revisit it next time. But
yeah, I can send out those emails like that and say, hey, you know, we're prioritizing this. We're populating a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It would seem you've been sort of leading this. Is that something you would like to continue to do?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think it's probably a little naive of us to think that we're just going to put this list out there and just wait for volunteers to sign up. I think we're going to have to invite people to step up and try to encourage them a bit.
You are cordially.
Yes.
And do we want to have some kind of or have we had in the hub a message yet where we just sort of generally say, hey, we're looking at a new year. What do you guys want to see this next year?
I think, Ben, I think the way to do that is to do the spreadsheet and the notes to set the basis. When we've gotten a little bit of feedback, if any, from those notes, then we promote it more generally. I think the point is to create critical mass and then publicize that to actually get the explosion.
You know,
to make the metaphor.
I agree. Why don't we put a bow on this? I'll take responsibility. I'll populate the sheet. I'll communicate to those individuals I believe are already sort of doing it, seeing if they want to be added, and if so, how. And then when the time comes, I'll write the hub, the forum release on it, and put the link in, and solicit more info.
Great. And keep Ben in the loop on the latter part.
Oh, yeah. No.
Very good. Okay. So moving on then, we'll come back to that next time. The next topic I have up here is our online infrastructure updates, because there have been quite a few. We've already touched on some of these. So starting with enabling the future, I will be reviewing the site design recommendations provided by the Deloitte team with Jen. She's been down with a really bad case of the flu, so once she recovers, we'll be going through those recommendations. And I suspect what's going to happen is that, while there is a longer term plan for their recommendations, we might make some very short term updates, just taking some of what they have in their prototype and kind of working those very quickly into the site. Because I think there's some very good suggestions in there that would make things a little easier to find and, more clearly represented. So we're going to go through that together. But then there will be an ongoing effort to, pursue their broader recommendations over time. So that's enabling the future. On the hub, I mentioned last time that Masvi has developed this e-NABLE device color customizer. It's a very cool tool that lets you preview different color combinations for all the different e-NABLE designs. And he has added all of the current, at least the more popular designs in the catalog into that tool. And those have now been linked in the catalog. So on each of the device pages in the device catalog, there's actually a link to the device color customizer for that design. So it's a really cool tool. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a nice way of kind of playing with different colors and seeing what it's going to look like in a very nice, 3D rendered preview that you can rotate around and kind of see in a nicely rendered view. So,
if my memory serves me correct, Jack Sutcliffe worked on an early version of that.
He did.
Yes, he did.
He did. He worked on it on a different platform. He was using a solid workspace tool.
But we haven't heard from him lately, and I wonder if sort of a special email to him.
Well, I would love to. Unfortunately, the only email address I have from him has gone dark, and I get he had an email address at the university that he was with, and whenever I email that address now, I get a reply back saying that mailbox is no longer found. So he's moved, and I have no forwarding address.
SUT, Ben, SUTCLIFF.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know where he is.
Well, they had some issue with regulation to the chapter, right? And they had to kind of go dark for a while. I
don't know about that.
That's right. There was some regulatory issue that was looming.
Okay.
But I did notice just recently that they had a Facebook post about a recent delivery. So Ireland. I'm not positive it was his chapter.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it'd be nice to get him back in the loop.
It would.
You bet.
In other news, as I mentioned before, I have added the e-NABLE chatbot to the hub. So when you go to the hub now, you will see a little chat icon in the lower right corner. And, from time to time, I will be online in the live chat, and in that case, when you click that icon, you will be connected with me, so we can have a real-time chat, and I can answer questions. I do tend to stay pretty busy, so when I'm not online in that live chat tool, the bot will answer instead, and it is programmed to answer common questions about e-NABLE. And any of those chats are recorded, and it creates a ticket in our help desk. So even if the bot can't answer the questions, we do get a ticket, and we can reply back by email with answers. So we do have that mechanism added into the hub now.
It works well. It does. It works pretty well.
And as John mentioned, we also have the new experimental video room on the hub. So lots of nice new updates for the hub, and more coming soon. e-NABLE Web Central, we do have new cases available, as I mentioned before, and more excitingly, I have a new volunteer candidate for lead developer. I had a great call with a gentleman yesterday named Neil. He is the lead applications developer for UPS and has been there for 20 years. So this is somebody who's apparently quite stable with a great deal of experience.
I think he was programming fax machines in the early days.
Yeah, a very, very sharp guy. Had a very nice conversation. He really knows his stuff. The technologies that he works with are an exact fit for what we use: ASP.NET, Angular, Microsoft SQL, and even better, he has extensive experience with cloud-based infrastructure, specifically Azure, which I have been trying to get e-NABLE Web Central migrated over to. But we don't really have anyone with the right skills. So he has extensive Azure skills, and he's going to be able to help us to complete that migration.
How did you link up with him, Jeremy?
He responded to our posting on volunteermatch.org, and I just connected with him through that. So yeah, it was a really nice discussion, and I really hope it works out. But he says he's on board, and we've got an onboarding call scheduled for early January, I think the second week in January. So we'll get him started. And now he's got a full-time job, so we have to be realistic about expectations. He's only going to have a small number of hours each week, so development will be slow going. But with him combined with Guillermo, our part-time programmer, we will be able to start making forward progress on our development roadmap. So it's just a matter of prioritizing things and keeping realistic expectations about the timing. But we will be able to start moving things forward again.
That's fantastic. I want to remind you that there was once upon a time a UPS commercial that was done in collaboration with some chapter somewhere that featured an e-NABLE hand.
Oh, cool. I wonder if we could dig that up. I'd like to share that with him.
Yeah, it's somewhere on the web.
Okay. Well, if you find it, send it to me.
Yeah, I will. I'll look for it.
And then I copied in Ben's links here to the 3 documents he came up with: the identity review, the systems review, and the metrics and data review. Ben, I don't know, is there anything to talk about there that's relevant, or did you want to review anything that's in those documents at this time?
Sure. I mean, if we have a couple minutes now, I think the identity review was something just to basically get some perspective from everybody involved in SPC about what their vision of e-NABLE was. I think that could help with some of the media stuff that we're talking about, if we sort of have a resource for that, especially if it's something that everybody feels unified on.
Mm-hmm.
So we could take a quick look at that now. I think the systems review was something that would be helpful just to get a sense of who manages what in terms of the online ecosystem. But should we start with the identity review? Just take 5 minutes to see if anybody has anything to add to it, or we can just come back to it.
Yeah, it's up to you. I've got the identity review up on my screen here, if you care to talk about anything in that.
Yeah, I mean, we can just run through it really quick. Why are we here? What is valuable about what we do? Who are we appealing to, and what voice speaks to our people? There's sort of these general brand identity templates, and it more or less follows that in terms of the questions. I think one of the things that John and I have talked about a couple times, something that Kyle brought up in my meeting with him over the weekend, was that the specialty of e-NABLE with 3D printing and with hands is something that I think doesn't necessarily need to overshadow the possibility that e-NABLE could be broader than that. It could be, more assistive technologies, not just 3D printing. It could be more than just prosthetics, like some of these devices that John has shared. And I think again, as the 2020 initiatives, I think it's really great to broaden that scope for e-NABLE in the year coming up. So I tried to keep that in mind when putting this together. Built on an infrastructure of 3D printing, we might want to just sort of broaden some of the stuff.
With regard to that one, if someone would jot down an action item, I want to reach out to Chad of Makers Making Change, because their infrastructure for 3D printable assistive technology devices is a natural complement to our infrastructure for 3D printing people who do this kind of thing, sort of. So that would be the best next step forward in that direction, which everyone seems to agree about, but no one has quite figured out how to get over the hump.
Okay, I've got that action item for you, John.
Chad for
Thank
Makers Making Change, is that right?
I've got it. I already put it down at the bottom under action items, Ben.
Okay.
Similarly, by the way, if you would put down an action item for me on reaching back out to the MIT people whose socket technology is also good for non-hand devices that attach to arms. Not unrelated. It's another action item I will take on.
Was that NIST, John? Can you spell that?
MIT, the MIT.
Oh, MIT. Okay, MITT people, yeah. About socket technology for modular hands.
So I can take a look at this afterwards and just make sure that it's a little bit more broad in the identity review. I think something for us to keep in mind, it's a conversation that I've had with a couple of people at different times, but I think for the language that we use as a community, I think we've sort of settled on this idea of makers and recipients. I've talked to John actually this week about it, but I think that's sort of a linear way to think of it. It's almost like a medical model of doctors and patients. I think it'd be helpful if we could shift away from that and look at adaptive community members and maybe maker volunteers, but have them both be volunteers and have it be something where there's an expectation in how we're describing it that the people that do receive devices are they're sharing feedback is part of this process. It's not something where it's even in how we talk about it, it's somebody that receives something and that's their action item. I think it's equally as important that the feedback is coming back and we bring those people back into the community, potentially also designing new devices.
Yep.
Yeah, if I can just say that concisely, we have had some people like Peregrine and Nate in the past who are both people with relevant anatomical specializations, how's that for a euphemism, who have also been real leaders in reaching out to the to what we used to call the recipient community. And so we're trying to find a way of having those people become outreach champions and ambassadors, if you will. And they are crucial partners. They're not recipients. They are crucial leaders that we need to cultivate.
Yep.
Right. So the interview with Nate will be touching on some of those topics, just in terms of the role of the adaptive community in this whole process and their responsibilities as volunteers within e-NABLE. And, I guess in terms of the identity review, that comes into play as well.
Great. Okay, so should we move on? Did you want to look at the systems review at all?
Sure, let's take a quick peek. I think there was a couple comments that I had in there just to
yeah,
see
there's quite a few. So it looks like this one we need to kind of fill in some blanks for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have some question marks in terms of the authority on some of the different organs, if you will, of the e-NABLE online presence.
Okay, so I don't know that we want to go through this in real time here. Let me take an action item to go through and try to fill in some of these blanks, and then we can revisit it if that's okay.
Great.
Okay, and then did you want to look at the last one? Sorry, what was the last one? I'm down below in the document.
Metrics and data review.
Yeah, so the data and metrics, is that one that you want to look at, Ben?
Yeah, we can. I think I think that's moving forward. From the IBM meeting, was there anything that Bob or John wanted to add to this? Because
Well, that's true. So yeah, we have our spreadsheet now, and we're gathering these stats. So yeah, I think this one is pretty well being addressed. The only thing that we haven't done is I did, in the metrics spreadsheet, I added a bunch of extra rows up top for historical data. If we want to do that, somebody needs to go through and try to dig up these historical metrics and start to fill that in, going back, to the potentially the beginning of 2019, so that we have that data for trending and charting if we want to do that.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to for some of this stuff.
This reminds me that I did an unmet needs post saying we need a librarian, and I actually got a response, and with the holiday season, that conversation has dropped off. So if you'll make an action item, I will try to refresh that and see what's going on. With regard to metrics, I wanted to say that I think it's a really good time to dust off the concept of the Google Analytics on our various websites and think about adding that data to the mix.
I'm sorry,
also adding a Google.
I'm sorry, I missed that, John. Adding a what to it?
Google Analytics.
Yes.
Okay, so the only thing I'm currently capturing from Google Analytics, which is in the metrics spreadsheet, is average session time for the hub. But yeah, there's a lot more data in analytics that we're not including right now.
Right. I think we're at a position where we should really think about metrics that span sites, not just metrics that sort of drop out of an individual site. And Google Analytics is one of the tools we have for that.
Yeah. I would definitely need somebody that's an analytics expert for that. I do have Google Analytics set up on all of our sites, but I don't know how to set up those kinds of integrated reports and automations and things.
So that's an unmet needs topic that wants to be set, but it's also that I think I met someone in Toronto who may have just that expertise. So I'm in trouble today, but if you add that as an action item, I'll try to dig that up too.
I'm just going to kind of merge that in with the previous one. I think that kind of goes with finding a data librarian, somebody to help us with our metrics and our analytics.
Mention Toronto guy, if you would.
Mention Toronto guy? Okay.
And John, do you imagine, to state it more clearly, the interaction between the sites? So if one person is going from one to the other, is something you want to capture?
Well, I hadn't thought about that particular scenario. I think one of the questions we have is how are people spending their time on these various sites?
Yeah.
What specific URLs? Where do they go, et cetera? Google Analytics might even be able to capture transitions from one site to the other.
Oh, it certainly does. I mean, the thing with analytics is there's a ton of data in there. The challenge is building dashboards that show you just what you want to see in a meaningful way.
Well, that's right.
And that's where we need help.
Fair enough. That's not your job, but I think we should look for help on that.
Yeah. Okay.
I think just to add to I added to the activities list automation. I think the spreadsheet that we have right now, a lot of it is sort of manually adding it in there, and it'd be great if we can be adding different sheets to the spreadsheet. So right now, the hub, we have data that's collected through the tool that MASB added. If we can have some of these tools populating the spreadsheet or sheets in the spreadsheet,
that's
really
right.
helpful.
Yeah, because there's
and I am working on that.
Yeah, because there's definitely a Google API for Google Sheets. We use that as part of our stuff with the e-NABLE Web Central. And since MASV has already built that metrics tool in the hub, it probably wouldn't be too much of a stretch to have him plug that data directly into our metrics spreadsheet each week.
Right, so automated reports really is what we're looking for.
If you can't do it, I can do it.
Nice. Okay.
Right. John's been doing some work with the Facebook groups, which is great.
Excellent.
This is an area where I have absolutely zero knowledge and expertise. My only comment would be that we could generate a lot of data. Let's just be sure that the data we generate is something that's meaningful and controllable.
Yep.
Fair enough.
I'm just.
That's the whole challenge.
Yep.
We have so much data. It's all about pulling out meaningful pieces that give us something significant. Yeah.
Yeah, and that would allow us to do something with it, as
Right.
opposed to just saying, "Isn't that interesting?"
Right.
I keep on coming back to the hub as being really the crossroads right now of all of these online spaces that we have, and our ability to track the activity there is really important. Coming back to IBM and that collaboration, I think, John and I were talking about this week. If we can get the historical Google Plus activities into the hub, that'll give that long lens that Jeremy was talking about. It'll give us something that we can pool. We already have the toolkit for the hub. If we can get the Google Plus archive, which is years of activity, into the hub, we'll be able to use that toolkit that's already there to break it down and get some trends.
I took an action item for myself. I'm going to add Masvi to our Google Analytics account for the hub, so he has access to that data. He might be able to help us with that too. And John, I'll see if you're in there. I'll make sure you are too.
Great.
Okay, moving on. Let's see. Let me get back up to my place in the notes. So we looked at the different documents from Ben. Next topic up here is code of conduct, which I think we've kind of touched on sufficiently for today. It's a work in progress, having ongoing discussion within the hub. I think we just need to really work on getting that updated and solidified. We had some discussion just prior to today's meeting about calling out the importance of, if you're working with news media, the importance of giving proper credit to e-NABLE and the volunteers that made that work possible, and kind of how to represent the community with news folks. And I think part of that is that, we've always had a kind of a media FAQ, frequently asked questions. I think it's probably necessary to update that as well and make sure that that accurately reflects the things that we want media folks to know about, and make sure that our volunteers, share that link with them whenever they're dealing with the media, to try to get these things covered appropriately and give credit back to the e-NABLE community. So any
Agreed.
other, hopefully we'll get some other feedback from the community in the hub. We might need to kind of bump that up to the top of the forum or something to try to bring it back to people's attention. But I do want to get others' input on how we can update and improve the code of conduct. And then we're going to want to make a communications push to, let people know that it's been updated, encourage everyone to read it again, even if they've already read it before, and talk about how to, I don't want to say enforce it, but, talk about having people actually kind of signing off or acknowledging it and kind of formalizing it a little bit more to make sure it's actually being followed as much as we can.
Agreed.
Fundraising and fund allocation, Bob. I know you touched on this before. Anything else you care to share or talk about on that?
I think at this point we've got a couple of leads heating up, outreaches. I've like when I asked Ed Grieg for his thoughts, and I asked the community. I'm going to be generating my own. Let's get 5 to 6 good candidates cranking.
Yeah, excellent. Project proposals, not much has changed since last week. We still have the discussion going on about the NIOP work that Bob wrote up. There's some good comments happening in there, and I think you said you're going to go ahead and convert that into a proposal,
I'm going to pull a trigger on that right after next week.
Excellent. The only other active proposal right now is the one for e-NABLE Medellin product development and educational program, and that has a lot of good discussion, very mixed sort of voting. 1 agree, 1 abstain, and 4 disagree currently. So it does not look like it's going to pass, at least in its current form, but it is getting some good discussion. Hopefully that'll help them to reframe it. And
I think Adam will modify it.
Yeah, excellent. That's about it on the Lumio front. We have this campaigns document that Ben was seeking comments on. I know we did the end of year kind of giving campaign. What would you say is next on that campaigns list, Ben? Anything to focus on there?
I think the campaigns that we can do within the community in terms of promoting the accessible or the adaptive members, looking at diversity within the community, all that stuff would help. That's more of an initiative, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe we should figure out how to integrate some of this into Bob's initiatives document.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
That's what I was going to say.
Have we had any response to that mailing?
Response to
The giving program?
Yeah. I mean, has anybody donated?
John,
No, we did not.
Oh, okay.
It really was I tracked the email that we sent out, and we got about half as much as we usually get. I did do a little research about Giving Tuesday, and a lot of organizations were saying the same, that they get a lot less feedback because there's just so much going on from everybody. So it's hard to get people's attention. It's like a shopping spree, but for organizations getting donations.
Okay. Well, let's work on integrating some of these other campaigns into our 2020 initiatives and putting those up for discussion and prioritization.
Great. And I think,
Ben, I think that falls to you.
Yep, that's fine. And for the document for the giving campaign, I think we can include that in the newsletter, and it can be something that we just try to bring back a couple times. The same advice that it looks like is going to be probably relevant for Kyle. I think if we get a schedule for this stuff, it's going to be more familiar, and it'll just be, I guess, it'll go farther. So.
Great. Okay. Where do we stand on the e-NABLE newsletter, Ben? Are you working on a new issue?
Yep. So some of the main articles that we want to include would be the handathon, which we're I think is coming together. I can take that out if we just want to get it out, but
yeah, unfortunately I just don't know what the timing is on that. Just for the others here, I already told Ben this. What we're waiting on is that we have to share the photos and the video with the school first. They are going to share it on their social media because they have a standing agreement with all the parents that they're allowed to share anything that they want in terms of photos and videos of the kids. And once they've shared it on their social media, it'll be public record. Then we are free to share it. So I have to wait for them to do that first. I will follow up with our partners at BitSpace to see where that stands and see if I can get that moving. But that's what we're waiting on. So I don't know exactly when that'll be available.
Okay, maybe we can touch base next week and see how things look, and if it looks like things are moving along, we can include that. Otherwise, I can replace it with something else.
Sounds good. I have seen a draft of the video compilation that was done, a short kind of about a 2-minute video that was put together of the event, and it's looking really good. So we have some further edits to make, and then again get it shared out by the school. But it is being worked on. There is progress being made.
Great. Yeah, and that story I think touches on some of the activities going on at Lumio with funding the EWC and adding in these hand kits. There's a bunch of little things that kind of interconnect in the newsletter. So it'd be nice to include it, but it's something that we can take out of it.
Okay, sounds good. And then Bob brought this up before. We are working towards planning for e-NABLECon 2020. Myself and Maria and Jen and Bob, John, Ben, everyone here, and several others are hopefully going to be on this committee. I'm hoping to have Everton and Chad Corsi, and I think there are quite a few others. I know Maria has some people on her team that she wants to get involved, and I'd welcome anyone else out there in our community who has any interest in helping us to plan a great event for this year and get it out there well in advance so that people have time to make arrangements and participate and get all the topics and events planned out, or the presentations planned out and all that. So in early January, I will be starting to send out emails to the group listed here and try to start to work towards getting recurring meetings going and start planning formally for that event. I'm hoping that we can start to actually promote the event somewhere around the April timeframe, which would give people a good 6 months plus to make their plans to attend and join us for that. So that will be starting up soon. Let's see, I think we're pretty much out of time for today, so I'm going to let the rest of these topics go for now. Anybody else have anything you want to talk about real quick? Okay.
We'll meet in 2020.
Yes, have a great new year, everyone. See you next year. Bye, everyone.
Yep. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.